Right, hi students, it's homework time again. So in this video, I'm going to provide the explanation for the homework questions from assignment 2.2, chapter 2, simultaneous linear inequalities. Right, let's look at the first questions. We are given a quadratic inequalities, two quadratic inequalities. X plus 2 is less than 5 square root 17, less than x plus 3. And we are supposed to find an integer x such that it satisfies the set of inequalities given. Right, so what is an integer? Right, so an integer basically are just whole number, can be positive or negative, meaning it can be -3, -2, -1, or 1, 2, 3. And 0 is also an integer, except that 0 is neither negative nor positive. Okay, so let's get started. Right, so step number 1, we're going to break the given inequalities into two sets. Right, so you can actually rewrite it as x plus 2 less than 5 square root 17 and 5 square root 17 less than x plus 3. And we are going to solve both inequalities separately. So the first one, if you subtract 2 on both sides, you end up getting x less than 5 square root 17 minus 2. And if you use a calculator to evaluate, you should get 18.6 estimated to trace significant figure. Right, so for the first set of inequality, x is less than 18.6. So for the second set of inequality, I'm just going to change the position, because usually when you need to find the value of x, it should be on the left hand side. So I just shift this guy, x plus 3, put it on the left hand side, and then this guy, put it on the right hand side. But you have to be very careful when you do the shifting. Can you see that the inequality sign has changed? Now the inequality sign here is actually facing x plus 3. It means that x plus 3 is bigger than 5 square root 17. So if you're going to put x plus 3 on the left hand side, then make sure the inequality, this big mouth, I call this the big mouth, or big gap, or whatever you want to call it, must face x plus 3. So this is something you have to take note. Right, and then you'll get x greater than 5 square root 17 minus 3. If you use a calculator to evaluate, you get 17.6. Right, then what is step number 2? Step number 2 is, okay, we've already done that. Step number 2 is just to solve them. Right, and then of course step number 3 is to draw the number line. Now take note that x is strictly less than 18.6. So what we are using here is actually an empty circle. And for this part here, x is strictly greater than 17.6. So you're using an empty circle. So the answers are from the shaded region, the overlap region. Right, so from there we can tell that the only integer value that can happen in that overlap region is 18. So therefore the integer values of x is 18. Right, so in this question it's easier. You're just asked to solve the inequality. So again, step number 1 is to break it up into two sets. Right, so the first one is 3d minus 5 less than d plus 1. Second one is d plus 1 less than or equal than 2d plus 1. So let's solve it. Okay, so here you have to take note. Alright, why is that a change of the inequality sign? That's because I'm multiplying both sides with a negative number. So 0 divided by negative 1 will give you 0. Negative d divided by negative 1 will give you d. But because you're dividing both sides by negative 1, you have to flip the inequality sign from less than or equal to become greater or equal. Right, so what's the next step? The next step is to draw the number line. Right. Take note of how you draw the number line. You have to be a bit careful. D greater or equal than 0, meaning it can also take the value of 0. So hence, in this case here, right, the circle that you use, it's a solid circle. It means that D can also be 0. However, for this inequality, D is strictly less than 3. That means D cannot be equal to 3. Hence, the circle you used here to indicate it's an empty circle. So the region is actually the overlap region. So the overlap region is D greater or equal than 0 and less than 3. Right, let's come to 9b. Okay, this is more challenging. Why is it more challenging is because we're dealing with fractions. Alright, we're dealing with fractions. But the first step is still the same, and that is to break it up into two sets of inequality. The first one is b over 3 greater or equal than b over 2 plus 1. Second one is b over 2 plus 1 greater or equal than b minus 1. Right. So there are many ways of solving such inequality involving fractions. For me, I would prefer to combine these two into a single fraction. Let's see how I do it. I convert 1 into 2 over 2. Why do I want to do that? It's because I want to make the denominator the same as this guy here. If you have the same denominator, then you can just add the numerator. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. So that is my reason, objective for writing 1 as 2 over 2. So then I can combine them. Okay, this is something that's very important. You must remember, right? We can't do cross multiply for inequality. Okay, inequality, the way to manage inequality is very different from the way we manage equations. So for equations, we can do shortcut such as cross multiply. For inequality, we can't do that. All right. So therefore, what is the correct method for managing inequality? That is to find the common LCM, to find the LCM, not common LCM, sorry, to find the LCM for 3 and 2, which is 6, and then you multiply both sides of the inequality with the LCM. All right, so you will get 2b on the left hand side, and on the right hand side will be 3 bracket b plus 2. Okay, and then we're going to simplify the right hand side to be 3b plus 6, right? And 2b minus 3b is negative b more than equal than 6. And if you multiply both sides with a positive 1, remember we need to change the inequality sign. Hence, greater, this one here, greater or equal becomes less than or equal. All right, so let's go on to the second set of inequality. Likewise, I write 1 as 2 over 2 so that I can combine with b over 2 to form a single fraction. And then also on the right hand side, b minus 1, I write it as b minus 1 over 1. Okay, the reason is I want to find the LCM for 2 and 1, okay, which is 2. Right, and I multiply both sides of the inequality with 2. Okay, and then I simplified it. All right, again, take note that you're multiplying both sides with the negative, so we have to change the inequality sign. And the next step, of course, is to draw the number line. Okay, it's both solid circle. It's because b can take the values of negative 6. B can also take the values of positive 4. So the overlap is this region here. Overlap is this region here that I've indicated here. So therefore, b, it's less than or equal to negative 6. All right. So to summarize the techniques to manage this question, number one, all right, you cannot apply cross multiplications to solve inequalities. Okay, remember solving equations and solving inequalities are two different ways. two different things, so you cannot apply what you have used on solving equations to solving inequality. So therefore, what you need to do is to find common LCM and then multiply both sides of the inequality with, sorry, not common LCM, find the LCM and then multiply both sides of the inequality with the LCM. Then you draw the number line and then you write down the overlap region. That will be your answer. All right, let's come to the last part of the assignment, the last questions. It is a problem sum and it's very wordy, a lot of words, but not to worry. Right, what we can do is, if you have a problem sum that are so wordy, we just break it up into segments and we manage the segment one at a time. Or we can actually use Mr. Poyer's 4 steps of problem solving to solve these questions. Right, so step number 1 is to understand the problem. So if you read carefully, there are actually 3 characters in this problem sum. A boy called Wei Ming and 2 girls, one Joyce and one Siti. Right, so basically Siti doesn't contribute much, to the problem solving. She's just a character there receiving a present. The 2 main characters are actually Wei Ming and Joyce because they're combining to buy a present for her. Right. So sometimes in the problem sum, right, they will give you data, information, extra information data that you may not actually use it in your solutions, in your steps. Okay, so that part you have to take note. Right. So what we need to find here is, if we see words like at least, at most, right, then it's actually we need to apply the concepts of inequalities. Okay, so this is something that understanding the problem, what is understanding the problem all about? Okay, so that's step number 1, right? Then step number 2 is to plan, right? To come up with a plan. So we know that it's involved inequalities, right? So we will have to know how to solve inequalities, right? And we will also need to know the properties of inequality. If you multiply both sides of inequality with with a negative number, or divide both sides with a negative number, you have to change the inequality sign, right? So that it's come up with a plan. And then once you have a plan, you have an idea, the next step is to carry it out, and that is to present your solution. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to carry out the plan. All right, so there are 2 persons involved here. One is Wei Ming and one is Joyce. And I just realized that I spelled Wei Ming's name wrongly. There should be M-I-N-G, Wei Ming. Okay, right. So this is a partnership. Both of them wants to share the cost of a present for Siti. So since we don't know how much Joyce is willing to contribute, we just let it be a letter X. Okay, letter X. So Joyce contributed X dollars. Now, so if Joyce contributed X dollars, then the next question you ask yourself is that, then how much is Wei Ming paying? So usually this kind of information, it will be presented in the question itself, right? They have to give you enough information for you to solve the problem, right? So let's look at where this information is hidden. Yes, it's highlighted in green. So if you look at what is highlighted in green, it says that the present itself costs no more than 210. So what it means that these 2 persons, they're just willing to combine the money. They just want to pay 210 for the present. No, not more than that. That is the maximum, right? So from there, we can conclude that the cost of the present is 210. So if Joyce pay X dollars, then obviously Wei Ming will have to pay the remaining, right? Which is 210 minus X. All right, so far very good. Okay, now the next thing is that we have to form the inequalities, and that is really the tricky part. Okay, but never mind. As what we say, we'll break it up into segment. So the first segment is this part here that I'm going to highlight in yellow. Blue. which says that Wei Ming agrees to pay at least twice as much. Okay, so first of all, what is twice as much? If Joyce is paying X, so twice of X will be just 2X, right? So Wei Ming agrees to pay at least 2X. So what does at least mean? At least $3. If it's at least $3 means minimum 3. So it can be 3, can be 4, can be 5, can be 6, can be 7, right? So if he's agreed to pay at least 2X, it means it can be more than 2X. It can be 2X or more. So therefore, we can form the first set of inequality, right? More than or equal than 2X. So the amount of money Wei Ming is paying is 210 minus X. And this amount of money is more than or equal than 2X. So that is the first set of inequality. And how about the second one? The second one is the one that's highlighted in yellow. But there's also a maximum amount of money that he's willing to pay, which is true. If you look at it in real life, okay, and look at the budget, look at the financial situations, right? Usually we would say that, oh, okay, I can contribute, but I can contribute like no more than $5, but I can contribute at least $2, that kind of thing, right? So this is exactly what's happening lah. So Wei Ming says that, okay, I can only pay at most, whatever Joyce is paying, I can only pay at most 150 more. That's all. So Joyce pay X, and if it's 150 more means X plus 150. But he's not going to pay more than that, which means the maximum he's going to pay will be just 150 plus X. So we can form a second set of inequality. Okay? And if you look at it, we have two sets of, we can break it up. This is something similar that we have done earlier already, right? So we can break it up into two sets of inequality. One is 2x less than or equal than 210 minus x. Then we can solve it to get x less than or equal than 70. We can do the other one. Okay, and remember I actually changed the position, right? This is something you have to take note now. Okay, now the big mouth is facing 2x, so that means 2x is more than or equal. So when you change the position of 2x to the left hand side, make sure that the big mouth, I call this the big mouth. Okay, this is called the big mouth. This is called the big mouth. We'll have to face 2x, and then you solve it, you get x greater or equal than 30. All right, then what's the next step we do? Of course, is to draw our favorite number line. And the solutions will come from the overlaps, right? So in other words, if you look at the overlaps, right, x can take the values of 30, 31, 32, 33, so on and so forth until maximum 70. Okay, and then now let's go back to the original questions. So the original questions is that you're asked to find what is the greatest amount Wei Ming has to pay. Now, so this is a partnership. If Wei Ming pays the greatest amount, then Joyce will have to pay the smallest amount, right? So that means the values that I choose for x will have to be the least, the smallest, which will be 30, right? So if x is 30, then Wei Ming will pay 210 minus 30, 180. So this is what we have. Okay, right, so if I change the question a bit, I say that instead of finding what is the greatest amount Wei Ming has to pay, I change it to what is the smallest amount or the least amount Wei Ming has to pay. Then that will be the other way around, right? So if Wei Ming want to pay the least amount, then the values that we get for x will have to be 70 and not 30. Okay, so depending on the questions, right? Now, so the last step of what Mr. Poya suggested is to check your answer. All right, so you can just basically it works out that way. Let's see how we check it out, whether our answers is correct or wrong. All right, so we are saying that, okay, if Wei Ming pays $30, okay, let us check our answer. Huh? So we have WM stands for Wei Ming because I really don't have much space there. All right, so if Wei Ming pays 180 and Joyce pays $30, let's see. So 30 times 2. 30 times 2 will be 60, right? 30 times 2. Okay, so it's true. 180 it's more than 60. Then 150 plus 30 is 180, which is true also because Wei Ming only want to pay maximum 180. Right? Let's try another number. Let's try another number. Oh no, we can't try another number because yeah, we are asked to find the greatest amount. So yeah, so it's correct. Right, our answer is reasonable. Okay, right. Okay, so yeah, this question is rather challenging. So you have to read it a few times. Really read it a few times, and then after understanding it, reading it, and then you try it on your own. And if you can solve it by trying on your own without looking at the solutions provided, then I can truly say that you've understood the questions. All right, so have fun.